Good evening, and welcome to everyone to our explorations in Savitri on this New Year's Eve, 2017. As always, with our brother Alok, Namaste. We wish you a new year filled with peace and joy, inner progress, light, and the blessings always of Sri Aurobindo and Mother. Today we see a world in travail, an earth in crisis, rampant pollution, denudation of our forests. In the Amazon, thousands of trees cut in one day, and it's known as the lungs of the world. We see dioxins, pesticide use out of control, thinning of the ozone layer. Where does it end? It looks very bleak. And this is why I want to read you Mother's explanation of the New Year message of January 1958. Mother writes, "In the course of one of our classes, I spoke of the limitless abundance of nature, the inexhaustible creatrix who takes the multitude of forms and mixes them together, separates them again, and remolds them, unmakes and destroys them, to move on to ever new combinations. It is a huge cauldron." I said, "She stirs things inside and brings out something. It's no good, she throws it in again and takes something else. One or two forms or 100 have no importance for her. There are thousands and thousands of forms. And then as for years, 100 years, 1,000, millions of years, it is of no importance. You have eternity before you. It is quite obvious that nature enjoys all this, and that she is not in a hurry. If she is told to rush rapidly through and finish this or that part of her work quickly, the reply is always the same. But why should I do so? Why? Doesn't it amuse you? The evening I told you about these things, I identified myself totally with nature. I joined in her game. And this movement of identification provoked a response, a sort of new intimacy between nature and myself, a long movement of growing closeness, which culminated in an experience which came on the 8th of November. Suddenly, nature understood. She understood that this new consciousness, which has just been born, does not seek to reject her, but wants to embrace her entirely. She understood that this new spirituality does not turn away from life, does not recoil in fear before the formidable amplitude of her movement, but wants, on the contrary, to integrate all its facets. She understood that the supramental consciousness is here not to diminish, but to complete her. Then from the supreme reality came this order: "Awake, O nature, to the joy of collaboration." And the whole of nature suddenly rushed forward in a great surge of joy, saying, "I accept. I shall collaborate." At the same time, there came a calm, an absolute tranquility, so that the bodily vessel could receive and contain, without breaking, without losing anything, the mighty flood of this joy of nature, which rushed forward as in a movement of gratitude. She accepted. She saw with all eternity before her that this supramental consciousness was going to fulfill her more perfectly, give a still greater strength to her movement, a greater amplitude, more possibilities to her play. And suddenly I heard, as if they came from all the corners of the earth, those great notes one sometimes hears in the subtle physical, a little like those of Beethoven's concerto in D major, which come in moments of great progress, as though 50 orchestras had burst forth all in unison, without a single false note, to express the joy of this new communion between nature and spirit, the meeting of old friends who come together again after having been separated for so long. Then these words came, O nature, material mother, thou hast said that thou wilt collaborate, and there is no limit to the splendor of this collaboration. And the radiant felicity of this splendor was sensed in perfect peace.
It's very beautiful, very powerful. There's a little background to this and a foreground. So the background of New Year messages, or rather New Year celebrations in the ashram, it started in 1927, soon after the ashram was formally, if you may use the word, was created. So first time it was 31st December 1927, when at midnight, as the clock struck 12, Mother's music ushered the new year. There was no message at that point of time. And then from 1933, the messages, she started giving messages. And these messages would sometimes be prophetic about what is going to come, sometimes a difficulty, sometimes very concretely she is indicating what attitude we should take. For example, in 1955, you have the message.
Yeah, I think
And
so.
I'm sure it must be there. No human will can finally prevail against the divine's will. Let us put ourselves deliberately and exclusively on the side of the divine, and the victory is ultimately certain. And she even said 14 months in a conversation that 14 months are going to be very difficult for everyone. So if you see from 1st January 1955, 14 months, it's exactly supramental manifestation which took place 14 months later on.
Yeah.
So, and many of them she has explained, like men, countries, continents, the choice is imperative, truth or the abyss. So she says that abyss is lust for power and greed for money. And she said the whole world seems to be reeling under that. So there is, these messages were an indication. So it continued from 1933 onwards. Then, if I am not mistaken, 1933 was also the year, or maybe it is 37, when she actually, instead of the midnight, it started, morning meditation started. For some time it was 31st of December night that the new year was ushered in, and then it started from 1st of January, early morning 6 o'clock, when Mother would greet Bonani to everyone, and then, the music would flow. In 65, she speaks about Sunil Das music. And she says it's wonderful. I have been wanting this kind of music, and it's a music which is coming from the high spheres. And since then, you will see that in the actual recordings, it's Sunil Das music with certain hymns which used to be there as part of the morning meditation. Until 94, we have Sunil Das music. Subsequently, after his passing, I think now they probably play the recordings. And the message continues. Message later on started getting distributed to all over, not only within the ashram, but to visitors and people outside. Message started going. I don't remember which year, probably it was 45. The purpose was that now that truth has to spread beyond. So in the course of this journey, soon after the supramental manifestation, within 2 years, because supramental manifestation has taken place, but if material nature does not accept it, then what do? Man has to become receptive, open, but if material nature refuses, she is far more powerful. Man is just a little tiny instrument. then man's consciousness will not be able to receive it. But then in 1958, she accepted. And one of the first indications she gave of this event was to Huta. She sent a card to Huta in which there was this painting of Shiva and Parvati in that Shivling and their union. And the mother said, you know what this is? This is the union of the divine and material nature. So she said, and then she said that, you know what is the message I am going to give? So this what is going to be realized. It has been foreseen, and then she gives this message, and then she says, don't tell it to anyone. I'm going to give this message, because this experience is on 8th November.
Yes.
1957, and the message is 1st January 1958. Then people asked after the message that, Mother, what does it mean? She says, don't think that your difficulty suddenly will vanish. It doesn't work like that. So what it means is that nature has accepted, material nature, mind you, material
Yes.
nature has accepted to incorporate this new substance into her being. Which means that in all creation, wherever material nature is there, and it's everywhere, our very body is formed with material nature, something of this new substance will automatically go inside. And I am fond of using this word, that it's like a new chip which has been introduced into material nature, the supramental chip. So very clandestinely, the divine has done the divine surgery, and all children who are born after that, and sometimes people start saying, oh, you are born after that, I was born before. It doesn't matter, because we all will be born. It's not the end of the story. But by the very fact of taking birth, this chip gets activated. It's there, it's part of the material nature. And I'm sure it's working inside even to alter DNA, to alter heredity, bondages, which we do not know. It's working in ways beyond our comprehension.
Mother spoke about the diseases.
Yeah, diseases, so many things. So already we see that scientists are now trying to find the molecular basis and alter it. So this chip is working, and it's very evident. Similarity between the physiognomy of man and woman, she said it's a part of the supramental action. How is the supramental action taking place in the bodies? It's taking place because this new substance is there. So nature is striving to create a new being, which will be what has been foreseen as the supramental body. Similarly, we see a change of seasons. Now people use the word global warming and everything, but even this is game plan. See, as you were pointing out, pollution and all these things. One way to look at it is, as you said, it's people feel it's very dismal, but I have a slightly humorous aside to it. Millions of years back, there was a news being reported all over the world by unseen reporters in unseen channels that Earth is in danger. Why Earth is in danger? Plants are producing too much oxygen, and they don't have enough carbon dioxide to survive, and very soon the plant species will be wiped out. So everybody, all the plant spirits were sitting, the gnomes and all these, they are spirit of plants. What do? They have a conference. All of them are trying their intelligence, whatever limited intelligence is there everywhere. What do? We are the ones who are destroying ourselves by too much oxygen, but we need it because we have to breathe in carbon dioxide, we have to breathe out oxygen. What do? It's beyond us. So, it's given up. Earth is going to die. But God had another plan. And
The automobile.
no, that comes much later. God created a species which will breathe in oxygen and give out carbon dioxide and reset a balance. So I have a sneaky feeling that all this ozone layer being disrupted and all this, maybe I am an incorrigible optimist, but I have absolute trust in grace that it knows its ways. That maybe all this that is happening, on one side, things which are really like ozone layer being depleted. Now, I won't be surprised if the radiation which is now coming and affecting the human body, and with its offshoot of cancers, which is what people are scared of, is also triggering certain mechanisms, certain processes within the human body which are needed for transmutation. And
I feel that exactly.
yes, and it may not be
Yes,
necessary to go
yes.
into details, but there are indications in Sri Aurobindo's letters. When Nirodha asks him, for example, that will the new body will have something like a radiation substance
Yeah.
which contains in it radiation, Sri Aurobindo says, well, it's possible, everything is possible, but why think about it now? Something to that effect. Meaning thereby that it's possible. So maybe, we know, for example, that the cells and the genetic material mutates when there is radiation. This knowledge we have. But obviously we don't like it because this mutation means cancer. But we don't know this mutation can also means evolution, which is beyond our.
Exactly.
The second part about automobiles, the actual pollution, which is throttling the lungs and breath of the human species. Well, today I was reading a marvelous line in Savitri, digging a tunnel through emergency.
Yes.
So it is also true that all facing all these challenges which are unique, mankind is suddenly beginning to become conscious. We are polluting. Like that's why we speak today that about pollution, about this and that, and we want to reorient our lifestyle. So even that, so both these things are working because to ultimately help mankind evolve, because material nature has accepted this new substance.
Exactly.
So children will change, will grow more conscious, and through ways and means beyond a reckoning, the new consciousness is working. And for a long time in the ashram, just a small little story, mother had given people work to count the flowers and
Yes.
the leaves, and people
Especially
know about
transformation flowers.
Yes, and people know about the balcony darshan, but there used to be several darshans of the mother, and people would rush from one darshan to another. For example, there was something called as vegetable darshan. There was another called flower darshan. And somebody, human mind with this limited, oh, what is all this? It's a cult. No. When people were counting, they, after all, you are counting mechanically. So they asked mother, what is there? I mean, there is plenty. I mean, why do you ask us to count? She said, it's my account with material nature. It's a promise. I want to see whether she is keeping her promise or not. I want to see whether she's just trying to fool or actually. And that is a time when things came in abundance.
Yes.
And then you see all the experiment, divine love, suddenly coming, She is planted like this. Many of the plants which are not seasonal to Pondicherry and they don't grow in certain seasons have grown up here. Even the way Auroville land, which was supposed to be a barren land, has become so fertile. So all this and many other things are happening because material nature has accepted the new substance.
I always remember Sri Aurobindo's reply to Dilip Kumar Roy about the earth. The earth is a conscious being,
Yes,
and the world is only the form it takes to manifest.
that's it. In fact, he speaks of 7 luminous earths.
Yes.
Which we basically is the principle, earth principle. Earth principle exists in the divine as the condition for his manifestation. That's why if you go into the abstractions of philosophy, you will say matter is also born with the spirit. There is a whole philosophy like that nature and the divine both are eternal. Of course, in the highest sense, there is nothing else but the divine. But both the spirit and matter both are eternal, because the moment spirit, the conditions for manifestation have to take place with matter. But that matter is not this matter as we understand it. It's a matter which has just the spirit has slightly condensed itself and become matter. And then that's a subtlest of matter, and it becomes more and more gross and dense and becomes this. And that also reminds me of another thing. Last time we touched, I think, or maybe 17th November, that about the mothers and Sri Aurobindo's supramental bodies. And humanity has to reach a point of evolution where our sight will be able to perceive them while they are there, and that body will become more and more dense. Very strangely, something I read today, I had read all this, but it suddenly came and the whole memory came back, where mother speaks of it, Um, she says that, the disciple has asked, is there life on other planets, other areas?
Oh,
She
yes.
says, life is everywhere. And she says, but it is made of a matter which has a different density than our matter. And that is why our senses cannot experience that matter, because the density is different. She doesn't use the word subtle matter.
No.
She doesn't say I'm talking about subtle physical beings. She speaks about beings which are material beings, but made of a different density of matter. Now, maybe today when we talk about dark matter and antimatter and all these things in the universe, maybe there is a different organization of matter right here in the material world, not in the subtle physical, which we are not able to see at this point, because our senses have been trained over millenniums to perceive only a certain type of density of matter. And we know it, like sounds, we know very well that after all, the ears can hear only between a certain limited range of frequency. The eyes can see within a certain limited range. So even at the material level, there is a lot more that is happening, much more that is happening which we cannot see. Lot more that is happening which I cannot hear. And one of the things that will happen with the supramental manifestation is that we will be able to experience all that which is yet hidden. Hidden not in subtle worlds. I am speaking just of material world. Shobindra speaks of that the sight perceiving this truth, and the ears, truth hearing, truth seeing, even in the most physical world, which we are not able to experience. It's a terrible limitation. So all this is going to open up with the new consciousness. And I think children who are born nowadays, mother spoke of child prodigies and with exceptional faculties. At least whenever I watch some of these dance shows, Indian television, I'm sure it's happening in America and other places. I am amazed, really amazed. I mean, 4-year-old child, 5-year-old child. I mean, what people with great practice find it difficult to do it, they do it impromptu. This is not normal. I mean, it's like evolution has entered into an exponentially phase of, like a geometrical progression. It's leaping, leaping, leaping.
I saw an 8-year-old boy conducting an orchestra.
Yes.
Absolutely perfect beat and everything.
It's just amazing.
And then in another YouTube thing, he's playing the violin perfectly.
And mother spoke of this. She spoke of the child prodigies.
Yes.
After this event. There are at least, after this event,
Yes.
at least twice she speaks of the child prodigies. And she says, this is an indication. She speaks about madness and she says, this is an indication. Because the norms are breaking. After all, people are beginning to experience. After this, people wanted to have psychedelic experiences because suddenly, they could sense there are other dimensions and they wanted to experience it. So many things are happening where, she has always said, let me make it very clear that mother has always said this is not the right way to experience the hidden realities, because you are projected into the lower vital worlds. So we must mention, otherwise, somebody would think that mother, she could see the divine power working behind everything. And we are so blind that we see, a blank even where divine power is obviously working. That is the difference between the human vision and the divine vision.
In the mid-70s, Mary Helen had a vision of the supramental world, and she wrote it to Madhav Pandit. And he said, your vision is absolutely correct. And she said she saw Sri Aurobindo in a small body. And Madhav said, well, that's because his stature is still growing in the supramental consciousness.
Yes.
And we will see it.
Yes. So, these are indications that the supramental body is still there. It's there very much. Not the supramental body in the supramental world, but the supramentalized physical body.
Yes.
So, many such things. So we should always greet the new year with, in any case, we should greet every day with hope, full of hope and trust. And I have very simple logic to it always. That's what, whenever somebody says, I say, if there is no divine, why worry? If there is divine, why worry? If there is no divine, there is nothing to worry. Because dust unto dust, into dust it lies. If there is divine, why worry? He knows it very well. He knows all our stupidities, our follies, our stumbles, and uses even our ignorance for his purposes. That's why, Divine is not somebody who is just using the wisdom. He is using even our ignorance, even our capacity to destroy things. Ultimately, it's all from every side surrounded by the divine and pushed by the divine. And last time I think you spoke about the apocalyptic vision, where large masses of mankind may end into a self-destructive mode because it may be necessary as a process. So we are very attached to limited forms and limited periods of time. So we are always, we are become very sentimental about these things. But the divine vision leaps across centuries. And I think with this background, we can read page 704, 705.
Oh, yes.
So it's about the new creation and marvelous lines. It's the boon which is being given to Savitri. First, what a way Sri Aurobindo describes the supermind. Several places he has described it. It's so beautiful and it's incomparable.
Yes.
The moment we try to put it in a scholarly academic way, we lose its truth. So look here on page 704. Mind is not all his tireless climb can reach. There is a fire on the apex of the worlds. There is a house of the eternal's light. There is an infinite truth and absolute power.
Yeah, there it is.
Supermind being there means absolute certainty. It takes into account all the possibilities and uses them. This also Mother said. When people asked her about the Third World War, she said that now that the supermind is there,
Yes.
it will use everything, whatever happens, all of it to hasten the manifestation upon earth, divine manifestation. So she made it very clear that we should not even think negatively in that direction because it will just be unhappy unnecessarily. The Spirit's mightiness shall cast off its mask. It may well be the casting off of the mask.
Very well.
Its greatness shall be felt shaping the world's course. It shall be seen in its own veilless beams. A star rising from the inconscient's night. A sun climbing to supernature's peak. Now comes very interesting passage.
Yes.
Because when we share these thoughts, sometimes people say, oh, that means we shouldn't worry. War is taking place, humanity is going down the drain, pollution. So you think we shouldn't worry? Each one must do what one is deeply inspired to do.
Yes.
We have been called for yoga. We would do best to stick to yoga. If we were meant to be activists, we would be inspired to be an activist.
Yes.
So, if one feels and believes that one has to be an activist, fine, it's perfectly fine, nothing wrong with that. But if one is turned towards yoga, then that is the best service he can do to the cause of the truth. Anil Baran's case, Sri Aurobindo had told him not to not to abandon his seat.
Yeah.
And look what happened, because he read about Hindu-Muslim unity and Sri Aurobindo's message. He just went away just to create unity because he was driven by the sense of idealism and activism that, oh, I am doing Sri Aurobindo's work. And eventually it was a miserable thing to happen. So, it's not about preaching to others. If I am drawn to activism and if I think it's an ignorant thing, mental idealism is an ignorant thing. But if one is drawn, if one is in that state, fine. But those who have been called to yoga have to be faithful to the yoga. Because that is the crucial point that some have to cross over. Without that, you clean the earth, everything you have done. But the same human beings are inhabiting it. So the solution will, again, that's what has happened, all the pralayas. So you'll have the same human beings inhabiting now a clean planet. So what happens? Again, the creation collapses. That is what she says. In our mind, still the possibility is there. Because human consciousness is driven by the ego. So there are few who will be called for this. Abandoning the dubious middle way. This is not the middle way of the Buddha, but the middle way that the mind tries to take. It is in that sense.
Yes.
Mind,
Yes.
supernature and no. Okay, it's fine, it's there. But my problems and concerns are immediately, this happening, that is happening. So it tries to take the middle way. It's not the middle way of the mighty Buddha, middle way in that higher sense. That sense comes several places. Abandoning the dubious middle way. A few shall glimpse the miraculous origin, and some shall feel in you the secret force. Look how Divine Mother, and Mother has said very clearly when somebody was asked, what does it mean, initiation? You have initiated someone into yoga. She says, when I say I have initiated the person, that means I have revealed myself to that person. And she says that coming to me should normally be toward the end of a long journey and not at the beginning. And it happens, I have seen, you just can't. It's with great difficulty. People like the books, they like the thought, but somehow this opening to Mother, the critical moment that which shapes your course, that comes at a certain point of time. When she decides, when she chooses, when the being is ready.
Yes.
And we can see this here. A few shall glimpse the miraculous origin, and some shall feel in you the secret force. Even not all who are glimpsing. And they shall turn to meet a nameless tread, adventurers into a mightier day. Ascending out of the limiting breadths of mind, they shall discover the world's huge design and step into the truth, the right, the vast. Satyam, Ritam, Rahatam of the Vedas. Now, against the revelation comes. You shall reveal to them the hidden eternities. It is through her that we can arrive at that. You shall reveal. Why? Because man cannot on his own. He will lose balance. Several times we see that is the challenge. Supreme Godhead tells Savitri that man will collapse under the weight of the supramental truth. So now he is telling, okay, I grant it, but through you. So you have to hold it. And he uses the word, my trusty time will manifest. But you are the one who has to give it to man. You have to make sure he is ready. You have to prepare man. Basically, he is giving charge of the supramental manifestation to her. That it will happen. But it is through you that it has to happen. So you see this marvelous line. You shall reveal to them the hidden eternities. The breath of infinitudes not yet revealed. Some rapture of the bliss that made the world. Some rush of the force of God's omnipotence. Some beam of the omniscient mystery. But when the hour of the divine draws near, the mighty Mother shall take birth in time, and God be born into the human clay, in forms made ready by your human lives. Again, people often wonder at these lines that what does it mean? It means Mother will come again in another human body and start the journey. This event was just a preparatory event. No, it is very clear. It's about the same thing, that in the supramental body, her supramental body, it comes near to earth. In human clay, which has been made ready by your lives, that God will step in. It's a very, very, beautiful line.
These 4 lines.
Then shall the truth supreme be given to men. Again, we have a wonderful description of the Supermind, and they remind me of the description of Brahman in Kena Upanishad. There is a being beyond the being of mind, an immeasurable cast into many forms, a miracle of the multitudinous one. There is a consciousness mind cannot touch, its speech cannot utter, nor its thought reveal. It has no home on earth, no center in man. This is the difficulty. There is no supporting point in the body or even the mind through which it can come. Maybe just a little narrow wicket gate that the divine asks. In synthesis, he says very beautifully. He says, it doesn't matter any name, any form, any symbol you use, but allow a small little narrow gate, wicket gate to the divine. And then he says something very beautiful. Because of this, the wise never give up on any person.
Yes.
Because they know that however far you may be, however low you may be, however ill-bred you may be, however darkness and obscurity you may be, there is hope, because all that he needs is a little opening. Yeah. And this is how
the beauty of that word, the wicket gate.
Yes, you remember that.
A wicket gate is a small gate that's set into a larger gate or fence, and you've seen it in India when they don't want the cattle to cross, and they have the bars, and they have that small wicket gate that you can get in, but the animals can't.
So yeah, it is very symbolic.
Beautiful, beautiful image.
It's so interesting, that he says doesn't matter. So very often people wonder, am I opening to the mother this way, that way? Doesn't matter. Just call her. Do it in any which way. Divine is not a super mathematician. I mean, he can be if we approach him that way. But all that he needs is a small little opening. And that's how I understand this, story of the Mahabharata. Toward the end, Krishna gives a choice to Duryodhana. He says, okay, you want the kingdom, you keep the kingdom. You want money, you keep the money. You want to be the head, the great emperor, you be the emperor. But just give 5 villages to Pandavas so that they can establish the reign of Dharma there. Just 5 villages. Now Duryodhan is has a wicked intelligence. So he knows that if you give 5 villages to the divine, he will end up claiming all. It's very interesting. He says, no, if you look at it, it's a foolish thing he has done. What is there? 5 villages. But he knows somewhere deep inside he is divine. He is not going to give up with 5 villages. Look, the story of Christ. What have the earth gave him? Just a cross. And just a cross. It's a horrible thing. Human consciousness, what has he returned to the divine advent? A cross. Nails. But look what Sri Aurobindo writes. Christ from his cross humanized Europe. That's enough. He says, fine. You give me the cross, I'll turn cross into a symbol of divinity. And human beings holding the cross in their hands will cross many despairing nights. So all that he needs is a small opening. But time to time these divine advents have come. But center in man, that's what they need. In the body, in the brain. Some foothold in matter. Inner consciousness foothold has been there. But the outer being. So he is reminding us, it has no center in man, no home on earth, yet is the source of all things thought and done, the fount of the creation and its works. It is the origin of all truth here, the sun orb of mind's fragmentary rays. Infinity's heaven that spills the rain of God, the immense that calls to man to expand the spirit, the wide aim that justifies his narrow attempts, a channel for the little he tastes of bliss. And then he speaks of, some shall be made the glory's receptacles and vehicles of the eternal's luminous power. Again and again, Sri Aurobindo never promised that everybody from, North Korea to the United States will suddenly wake up and be supramentalized. No. Some. And that some is a certain number that the divine mathematician knows.
And who are they?
Yeah.
These are the high four.
Yeah. These are the high forerunners, the heads of time. We'll turn to the next page. All Then shall change a magic order come. But before that, what is the sign, the indication? Because everybody can claim I am a forerunner. It's now it's a new batch, elite. So people in ashram began to feel that they are elite. Why? Because they are forerunners, supramental, first in the race. And they had to get such a beating to understand, no, sir, be on the ground. Don't forget, without the divine, you are nothing. With the divine, you are everything. Everybody went through this beating. And Mother speaks of it. Man needs this beating. She says, he is greater than the gods potentially, but he has forgotten it and he's puffed up with pride. So he needs the beating to roll into the mud to understand that, well, without the divine, I am nothing. So the sign of these forerunners is the eternal's truths had molded his thoughts and acts. They are not driven by desire and ego, whatever their claims may be. They are driven by the eternal's truth. Their thoughts and their actions are moved by the divine will. The eternal's truth shall be his light and guide. Not a book or many books or this or that information, but the eternal's truth. All then shall change, a magic order come, overtopping this mechanical universe. A mightier race shall inhabit the mortal's world. On nature's luminous tops, on the spirit's ground. You see, it's very interesting. We spoke about the Shiva and Shakti, material nature, and Mother gave that symbol. It's very interesting in Indian mythology, these three trinities, Brahma, Vishnu and Mahesh, Shiva. Only Shiva has home on earth. Brahma lives in some mysterious heaven, Brahmalok, God knows, wherever it is. Then Vishnu lives in Vaikuntha. It's not found on earth. But Shiva lives in Kailash, which is an earthly abode. Now, what is Kailash? It's a peak of nature. It's material. It symbolizes material nature in its tops. And that, up till that, there can be a touch of the divine. And there may be some truth in it, just as an aside. People may or may not know that Mount Kailash is the only peak which has never been scaled by any human being so far. Many have tried, but it has not been scaled. It's built like that. It's supposed to be the abode of the god. Sri Aurobindo speaks of that while translating one of Kalidas' works. Now, it's a symbol that there are, in the high peaks of nature, there can be a touch of the greater power. That the spirit makes its ground. That's how it starts. Some higher part in us responds to the touch. But this time, it doesn't stay there. It comes down and down and down. The golden light came down into my feet. My earth is now thy playfield and thy seat. This Superman shall reign as king of life, make earth almost the mate and peer of heaven, and lead towards God and truth man's ignorant heart, and lift towards Godhead his mortality. Then comes this, these lines, we read today. Yeah, this on page 709.
Yes.
So, he has already foreseen this. So, what happens after this light manifests in the peaks of nature? Most of us are touched in some higher mind or some deeper heart to start. The yoga starts from there. But what happens subsequently? And that's where we see this message which you read about material nature at one point accepts the light. Yes. And we have this description of this experience beautifully in Savitri, page 709. The truth above shall wake another truth. Even the dumb earth become a sentient force, conscious force. The spirit stops and nature's base shall draw. Now, they begin to get attracted to each other.
Yes.
Near to the secret of their separate truth, and know each other as one deity. The spirit shall look out through matter's gaze, and matter shall reveal the spirit's face. Then man and Superman shall be at one. This is the sign of Superman. There is earlier a line, the higher kind shall lean to lift up man.
Yes.
This is the sign that he will draw earthly life closer and closer. He'll not abandon it. He'll not run away into some, I am now a guru and sit on a pedestal. Then man and Superman shall be at one, and all the earth become a single life. And this is happening. I am so surprised and happily surprised. Yesterday itself, I met a very interesting young boy, 21, and this boy comes and tells me, all that he has read, experienced. He had an experience of the Vedanta, absolutely the sense of the one, and he doesn't know what he's experiencing. He said, it was mind blowing. I said, yes, I understand it's mind blowing. And then he said, but it's true, isn't it, that there are no measures of the mind? I said, yes, that is true, but you must. I was cautioning. Then he says, but I want something more. What after this? I said, well, boy, that's the end that Vedanta can take you to. So he says, but I want more. I said, beyond it is Tantra. Discover the power that is hidden inside. He said, how do I discover? So I said, that is the mother. Vedanta will take you till that final witness Purusha, which is beyond the boundaries of body. He actually had an experience. I am not this body, I am not this life, I am not this mind. Not as thought, but actual experience. And he said, I was just a witness. Nothing else existed and everything. I said, yeah. He said, but what next? So I said, next is Divine Mother beyond Vedanta and beyond Tantra also, because Tantra also conventionally, though it accepts in principle, the power operates in nature. So Sri Aurobindo gives reference to that the power which is concealed in nature will spring out. So Tantra knows this truth, but Sri Aurobindo brings it to its completeness. And then we can... Yeah.
Want to end?
You want to read something? Yes, I was turning to page 710 so that we can finish with these wonderful lines which complement what we just read. Once material nature accepts it, I think Mother has mentioned that the possibilities are limitless.
Yes.
So what are the possibilities? Look here. These separate selves the spirit's oneness feel. Page 710. These separate selves is not just human beings. The members of constituent elements of our totality. Mind, life, body, and of course, these senses of heavenly sense grow capable. The flesh and nerves of a strange ethereal joy and mortal bodies of immortality. Again, he's not saying you'll discover the consciousness of immortality inside. Mortal bodies, you'll forget to die. This, I think the other day we were discussing, Dr. Mandeep and myself, that, this is a strange phenomena in ashram. Sometimes you just wonder what is happening. I'm sure this happens to her children at some point. As if, people go into strange states, serious states on the verge of death. And what happens? So some people think they are clinging to life. But it may well be the body has forgotten to die. It just doesn't die. And we have seen now a number of instances. Actually, we could publish papers, but we don't intend to, because that's not what we are here for. But it's a very interesting observation. And the body is going on, bouncing back, then going on. It's strange. You can't understand and explain it on the basis of conventional medicine. In real good ICU settings, people may not be able to make it. And here we have a very ordinary baseline setting. And we are all very ordinary doctors to make sure. But neither the patient nor the matrix is ordinary. It's extraordinary. It's suffused with her grace. And what marvels.
And we see it again and
I
again.
see it so often.
Yes.
And now I'm glad that, he shares my experience. That's why people don't understand. Today they have put that silly notice, some healer has come, healing through grace, healing beyond boundaries.
Oh, I saw that notice.
I spoke to the lady, it's all so nonsense, and I have no reservations making it very evident. But anyways, they'll heal. So, but when they came, I said, I have one issue, objection. I said, we are here opening only to Mother and her grace. We don't believe in intermediaries, in priests and pandas, who will become intermediaries between Mother's force and us. Grace doesn't need intermediaries. Grace is grace, and we are so privileged to be directly open. Now, after this exceptional privilege, why do you want to go to an intermediary? And if at all, 99% Mother has said they bring nothing but the vital force, nothing else.
And that's religion.
That's religion. And worse, because it's religion, at least by belief you can open. But this is an occult play of energies. We don't know what kind of energies. And we have such a privilege of being directly open to grace. Why would somebody want to, go through this process? But there are. So, so he is promising us that, if we proceed along, this what will happen. A divine force shall flow through tissue and cell and take the charge of breath and speech and act. That's why the Mother did not recommend pranayama. This also people ask. Are when the supramental force works, spontaneously the breath becomes a rhythmic flow. She's been described, and in agenda she says, yes, the breath.
Yes.
Shobindo's poem Transformation starts with this. My breath has become a subtle stream, rhythmic stream.
Yeah.
It's a spontaneous pranayam. And initially the heart will beat fast. All this will happen because it's not able to accept the force, but slowly, instantly it puts the breath into a different rhythm. So it will take charge of breath and speech and act, and all the thoughts shall be a glow of suns, and every feeling a celestial thrill. Often a lustrous inner dawn shall come, lighting the chambers of the slumbering mind. A sudden bliss shall run through every limb, and nature with a mightier presence fills. This is what we read today. Thus shall the earth open to divinity, and common natures feel the wide uplift. Illumine common acts with the Spirit's ray, and meet the deity in common things. Some of the happiest people I see here are in the dining room. And when I came here, intellectual arrogance. I was invited once to Auroville to give a talk. So along with me there were some other friends, intellectual friends traveling. And they were very, you have come. I was a newcomer. So what are you planning? I said, I don't know. I'll go and ask Chitradi wherever she sends me. Then a couple of them laughed. She will send you to dining room. As if going to dining room is something like low. But some of the happiest people I see are in the dining room. Strangely open. As if they understand the yoga in their bones.
Yes.
That was my first training ground, incidentally. I used to come for 15 days, 20 days and take up work in dining room washing section. So once I picked up the plates, and then the man next to me said, no, you are doing it the wrong way. And my doctor's pride was instantly hurt. He will teach me? No, not that bad. But I said, he said, no, keep it back. So I put it back. Then in his own way, he taught me how to lift up the plate. It starts from there. We think it's the end product. And then I realized how much of yoga you can do just by this act.
Yes.
See, meet the deity in common things.
I have a wonderful story about Huta. She was drying spoons.
Yes.
And another fellow was drying plates. And Huta said, I want to do plates. And he said, well, you see, you could do plates, but I'm not in the right consciousness when I do spoons.
Yes. See, one of the persons, we often think about these great luminaries who have written books and who are famous, but there are many persons in ashram who have realized wonderful things. One of them, his name was Bihari, and he predicted his own time of death and told his friend and gave away everything. He knew when he is going to leave the body, consciously left the body. About him, mother said something remarkable. When someone complained that he doesn't come for darshans, mother said it's not needed. He is always conscious of me within him, and he is always living within me. Now this person, you know what work he was doing? He was doing banana service. That means cleaning the bananas and just putting them in the paper, in that
Fruit room.
fruit room. I mean, what a wonderful thing. Meet the deity in common things. We don't have to do big things, and that is not the sign. The sign is how much we are open to the new consciousness and to her grace. That's what matters. So he has made it sure toward the end of Savitri. Don't think that you will be in contact only while doing some extraordinary things. Often that time you are likely to be in contact with your ego. But when you are doing common things, you are on ground earth. Sri Aurobindo's aphorism, two things which are perfectly pleasing to God in his servant. One who sweeps his temple floors in silent adoration.
Yes.
And the other who fights the great battle, divine battle, for the divine consummation of humanity. And both for the divine are wonderful. So last 4 lines and we will stop. Nature shall live to manifest secret God. She realized this is within me.
Yes.
Mother made her realize, look,
Yeah.
I am bringing out what is within you, and it will make you more perfect, more beautiful, more happier. The spirit shall take up the human play, this earthly life become the life divine. And this should be our Bonani.
Bonani.